welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Reviews. Last installment for the season. Up first, we've got Pode. A bit of an oddity as it's a console game. We usually review the PC versions of things, but there is no PC version of Pode. Ergo, the review will be helmed by Galix and Ogre, who have been playing this game this week.
You okay, Adam?
Oh, good. I thought something broke on my end.
I thought he was trying to give us a cue to just start, so...
It sounded like he was about to, but then dropped.
I guess the audio cut there?
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. No. Wondrous. Live broadcasting. Anyway, so Pode is a co-op puzzle platformer. We interviewed the developer Henchman and Goon earlier this week. If you want to learn more about the game itself and the development processes and all that stuff, go and check that out. Galix, Ogre, take it away and talk about the game particulars.
So the story about this game is pretty simple, as a lot of parts of it are. There's a little fallen star named Glow and a little rock guy named Boulder who is helping Glow get home. And to do that, each of the two characters has their own abilities, and when you're playing a single player, you can swap between them and make them hold hands to use their powers at the same time. Or when you're playing co-op, which I honestly recommend, each player controls one of them, and you can still swap at any time if there's something that one person's having a hard time with. Boulder is kind of the character you're probably going to be using the most at the beginning. His powers are magnetism based, but they're a little bit more... You get all of his powers, or most of his powers, right at the beginning. He has the ability to, if he uses his magnetic field near certain slightly metallic stone objects, they'll bloom or crack open or activate switches or stuff. And he can also open up his face and hold things inside him, although when he's holding things inside him he can't jump as high, and there are little wall holes that he can travel through. And Glow's initial powers are just that he can make himself glow to emit light, which makes plants grow, and while he's glowing he falls slower. But then later on, he actually gets a rather more complicated moveset that involves the ability to leave a little bit of light somewhere that can illuminate things even when he's not there, and then he can teleport to that. So, and I did not quite manage to finish the game, so there might actually be a few more things later on. But that is the most of it. Would you agree with that, Ogre?
Yeah, you probably got a little farther than I did, but that's about the moveset that I got to.
Mm-hmm. So given
I
those...
do like the fact that Boulder can actually suck in Glow and then go, patoo!
Yeah, that was... It took me a while to figure out you could do that, even though I knew you could pick things up and put them down. But yeah, that's the cannon mode is kind of fun.
And especially the teleportation with Glow inside of Boulder gets a little, three-dimensionally here.
Yeah, you get some really interestingly complicated puzzles about, first you have to get Glow to a place so he can leave his light there, and then he has to get back, and then you teleport back to where he left the light. But yeah, so the basic mechanics of the game is that there, in any given area, there's a lot of stuff that reacts to your powers, even though a lot of it isn't meaningful, like just plants that will grow or rocks that will have crystals come out, depending on which character. But there are collectibles in little forms of little glow bits, and like in a rock you crack open with Boulder, there'd be a glow bit, and Glow has flat surfaces of rock that if he stands by, designs appear on them, and on the pause menu, the game tracks all of your collectibles, which is really useful. And after you've been through an area, you can fast travel to that area if you want to try again. So that actually helped me a lot because it made me feel comfortable in leaving things for later or going back when I knew I missed something. But yeah, basically given the fairly limited like specific abilities you get, this game is pretty creative with the puzzles it makes you come up with. Because with a lot of asymmetrical co-op things, there's a lot of do something with one character to make it so the other character can do something, and then the other character will help the first character get to where they got to. And I do a lot of stuff with growing plants and moving minerals and melting ice and stuff.
The one I kind of got a little wonky with was the flower pipe organ.
Yeah, there are some puzzles that are a little bit tricky, and you can't always tell exactly how you're supposed to.
Yeah, it kind of took me a little bit longer than I care to admit to kind of figure out that, oh, okay, this is the pattern you want me to read.
And there are a few things that aren't always that, like, it is how you're supposed to do it, but it's not always easy to pull it off. Like, there's one area that I remembered having a really hard time getting Glow and Boulder out of, specifically Glow, and you're supposed to cannon him out, but it was hard to figure out the right angle. I think if I had the biggest weaknesses of this game that I can think of, the camera control, especially in co-op, isn't perfect. You can click the stick to switch which character you're focused on, but it can get kind of awkward when the characters are getting further away, which there are some puzzles that require you to do.
Yeah, it's very much the fixed camera that's kind of makes it a little harder to judge specific things you need to judge correctly in this game, because I've noticed that a couple times where the camera's kind of screwed with me a little more than I care to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's especially a problem because depth. This game has a lot of depth. Sometimes you have to go like literal visual depth, and sometimes it can be when the camera is at a flatter angle. It can be tricky to figure out what depth or what angle of depth you need to be at. It's a little bit less.
Especially if you're doing platforming with Glow and you need Glow to like slowly drift down to a platform.
Yeah, or there's the slow fall, and sometimes there are updrafts that he gets further floating on, but you can't always tell how far the updrafts go because camera depth. But I do feel like they have some really good and creative puzzle design. Sometimes the rooms get a little bit busy just with grass growing in places. But
Yeah,
it's
I
still
know.
usually
I mostly played it undocked, and I noticed that it wasn't often. I didn't really have trouble with it at all, but a couple rooms that got a little overgrown kind of chugged the frame rate, but that was only in undocked mode. So
yeah, I was always playing docked in co-op, and that worked fine. So that's probably a better way to play it. It does make the Switch run a little faster, so that is a known fact about the system. Most of the puzzles are fairly obvious what you're supposed to interact with, just not always how. Like, there's one puzzle fairly early on where you have to set a bunch of things to the certain symbols, but the correct answer is kind of hidden in the back of the room, and you have to get either trial and error it, which I would not recommend because it's like 4 or 5 state switches, and that's a lot of possibilities.
yeah, that pipe organ puzzle took me a bit because I didn't realize that Glow was supposed to glow on a specific wall that would have given me the hint for everything for
Right,
a while. So it was I just stood there going like, okay, what do I do here? And then just fortuitously I went up there and hit the right spot, and everything just started to make sense there, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the only reason I solved that is because I noticed that one of the sides of the room was lower than the other one, so it looked like it could be climbed up. But I didn't notice that until after trying a lot of random things. This is another one of those games that is arty and therefore does not use any actual words in the design of the game. So all of your instructions will either be pictographic of what Boulder and Glow should sort of be doing, or at most what button you should press. The only actual letters are the Z, L, and ZR because those buttons are the same shape. And I guess L and R, whereas the when it needs a face button, it'll just be 4 circles with the correct one colored in. I think it
Very
manages to do that.
minimalistic, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very art, like, this is a game that is definitely like designed almost as playable art rather than just as a story game. It's very art styled.
Well, and this is one of those pure puzzle platformers. You don't have like any combat or anything, right?
Yeah, if there's any combat, it's way past where I got to because my characters do not have any. Okay, I guess you could theoretically do a thing where Boulder needs to shoot rocks at stuff, but that has never come up. So, I mean, he has to shoot rocks into areas where they could then be used to plug into switches, but and it's very the makers of the game are Norwegian, and it's very influenced by, if you've seen Norwegian art, they have a lot of interesting color swirls and designs. I know it's Swedish rather than Norse, but I'm thinking about like the patterns on a Dalahast. It's a lot of reds and blues and greens that are used in contrast to a very neutral color area when you start. So it really feels like when you're going through, you're kind of making the world, the room come to life, you know? Sorry.
Yeah, I pretty much tried to cover every square inch as much as I could.
And they really reward you for going out, like some of the most out of the way.
I mean, not even for the little collectible sprites and everything. I just wanted to fill up the room with color because it looks like it just makes you want to do it.
Right.
It's like, it's almost like you're painting a blank canvas with nature in a sense. If I can get really, really pedantic and everything.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say that. What I was gonna say is that they kind of encourage you towards that by, if you're doing that, you'll find a lot of the little things that you get. So it's a good way of reinforcing the desire to do that.
The little sprite collectibles.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. What else do you think? Have I left out anything important?
Boulder and Glow can hold hands, so 10 out of 10 there.
Yeah, it's super adorable.
Oh, it's very adorable.
Game of the decade.
The little end cards after you collect the item in the area are kind of adorable. I got the one where Glow's holding on to like a dandelion, and Boulder's got a bamboo shoot in his mouth, and it's just like, oh, that's really cute there.
Yeah, and the bamboo shoot was actually the treasure of that area. The way it works is you're trying to get through a temple to get back to the sky, and then each set of rooms has a thing that changes. Like the first one, you get a bamboo shoot. The second one, you get water into that area, and then you can get light to grow the bamboo shoot so you can get up to the next level. But yeah. And it's actually worth going back sometimes to go through areas you already solved just to see how they change. Because like in the second area, at the end, you melt an ice thing, and then water is going through all the previous rooms.
So there's definitely a point to backtracking if you want to.
Yeah, if you left something behind, you can go and get it, and if you do, that stuff will look a little different. So yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun playing with it with a friend. It's a good game, like the developer said. It's a good game to be played with a friend or even like a young family member because you can switch characters at any time. So if you're playing with someone who's not quite as good at this hard problem solving, you can just ask them to switch characters for a little while when you need to do that.
Yeah, so you're not just constantly stuck frustrated.
Right, and it can even be fun to just ride around on the other person's head.
Yeah, there's that too. I mostly play single player, so it's pretty much the same experience. It's probably better for co-op, but I didn't really get a chance for any of that.
Yeah, in single player, you have to go a little bit out of your way to actually use both of the powers at the same time. Whereas in co-op, it's really easy for both players to just be using their powers in the same area and jump around while you're doing that because you're riding on each other or something.
Yeah.
So currently, this game is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. When we interviewed the developer, they said it may not always be, but
Cough,
currently
cough, a wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
right.
Say
And
no more.
the Switch is a really good platform for it, I think, because it's a fun game to just play and bring places and show people. It's currently going for $25, which would probably be a little much on Steam, but I think is fine on the Switch. I mean, not in that I don't think it's a good game and worth that amount of price. Just 25 is a higher price.
Does it
Steam.
leverage anything like HD Rumble or any of the Switch exclusive features, or is it just kind of a game exclusive on the Switch?
I think the biggest thing that it really is trying to leverage is the 2 Joy-Con drop-in, drop-out 2-player. Because you'll always have 2 controllers with you.
Right.
1 second.
Didn't really notice any rumble features at all.
Yeah, I think it rumbles a little bit when you're doing the solutions of the areas, but not like significantly. It's nothing HD rumble.
Yeah.
It's not going to go crazy when you're using glow and boulders powers at the same time, so you're going.
Although that would be because the visual effect looks like it would feel like that.
I think it's more for boulder because it's magnetism, but it would be awkward either way.
When you combine the two, either I think while they're holding hands or when you're riding on top of each other and using them at the same time, it gets like a bigger.
Yeah, you can tell the difference because the sphere around them both is a mix of both their powers.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely recommend trying this game either if you have a Switch or if it comes to a platform you do have. It's fun. It's usually relaxing. There are a couple of puzzles that are a little bit less relaxing, but
is there a real failure state, or is it just kind of you'll eventually get through it?
You can fall down cliffs all you want, and they'll just go like boop right back up to the nearest platform.
Whenever you fall off, you pop up somewhere nearby. The closest thing to a failure state is when you accidentally get like separated on opposite ends of a long room that required puzzles to get to the other end of it, and even then you can just fast travel back to the start of the room you're in.
Fair enough.
So yeah, there's really like no worry about it. It's just a relaxing puzzle game to go through.
Mm-hmm. It does take some figuring out how to solve some of the puzzles, but that's usually a good thing because puzzles that are too easy are not always super fun.
Yeah, especially once you get the Glow's teleport power, then things kind of get a little.
Yeah. For the first part of the game, Glow is very easy to do, and there's very little reason to not just always be on and walking around. But once you get the teleporting power, the puzzles get significantly more complex, even though you've theoretically only added a little bit more.
Yeah, it's that one layer added to everything really adds to it.
Mm-hmm. Like even just in the thing where you're getting from the first level to the second level where Glow's getting that power, there are a lot of like, okay, Glow needs to jump on Boulder and jump up to the thing and then leave his Glow and then get back down. But yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it.
I think it's honestly worth it, especially if you get somebody else to play with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I going back to what I said, I don't think the price would be bad on Steam. It's just I think on average games are a little more expensive on the Switch.
Well, the thing about
I'm assuming licensing and whatnot.
They just feel that's the proper price because it's digital only currently.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad price at all.
Not really.
Right. So, anything else?
The two of them can hold hands. 10 out of 10.
Yes.
Yeah. All right then. I suppose that'll do it for Pode. Be sure to tune in after the break as we review Xenon Valkyrie. Good gaming and such.